Just one thing I wanted to point out before I hand it over to the superintendent. This problem's not unique to Stoneham, and it's not new to Stoneham. You know, we've had a public works department back in 1983 talking about the restraints of Proposition 2.5, and back in 2007, the town pursued an override, and on the front page of the Boston Globe, when everyone got a newspaper, you know, the headline was Stoneham cuts all sports at the high school. So this, again, is not something this town hasn't been through before. We've really tried to duct tape and scissor everything together for as long as we can. And I just want to thank everyone, and I'll hand it over to Superintendent Ljungberg. We'll do some questions after he presents, and then we're going to talk more about the override and the process.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, I'm going to continue on here. Before I do so, I also wanted to thank our delegates for being here, as well as all the boards and folks here that have spent many hours learning about this process and learning about some of the challenges that we're up against. I'm going to be talking about what we really need at a minimum in order to sustain the school budget. And the other night I shared multiple options with the school committee with regard to what we need. And the big number that I'm presenting here is actually not the biggest. I presented 4 different options the other night. This is actually the smallest number out of those. We need a $39,896,857 budget. That would be an increase of 11.4% over the fiscal year 25 budget. What I presented the other night were options that ranged all the way up to a 23% increase, which if you watch the school committee meeting, you'll see that that was described as an investment and a capital budget. The reality, as Mr. Sheehan has explained, is that the municipality is limited in its ability based on Prop 2.5, and its contribution would be anticipated at just under $900,000 for FY26, which would essentially increase our FY26 budget to just over 36 million, just under 36,700,000. This would severely compromise the viability of our school district and the sustainability of the Stoneham Public Schools. And I do want to stop here just for a moment to state that I'm very aware that all of our departments within the town are in need of budgets. I see our police, our fire, our DPW, recreation department, all of our departments need funding. The numbers are so big here for the school department because as Mr. Sheehan had mentioned, we're not only the largest proportion of the budget in town, but we've also seen the expense side go up disproportionately over the past several years in the cost of labor, facilities, and utilities. The last bullet point here is also very important in that I want to mention that we have 6 different bargaining units that the school committee bargains with, and we are in a bargaining year right now. And this particular budget, with an 11.4% increase, would still severely limit the committee's bargaining position for those collective bargaining agreements, meaning that our educators would still remain some of their salaries at the lowest in the region. In order to balance the budget, our current services, programming, and positions need to be reduced by $4 to $4.5 million if we're not able to find a revenue solution for FY26. This is an estimate based on the unknown costs that are associated with our bargaining agreements as we're in right now, and we've been looking at the possibility of redistricting. We have a redistricting advisory committee that's in the works. We just met today, and we're looking at a selection of vendors for that process. Major cost drivers and some relevant data trends I'm going to share with you next. The fact is that our increase in special education services, the costs have gone way, way up. And I want to make sure that I'm stating out loud that this isn't to pit special ed against general ed. This is not what this is about. I'm simply trying to state the facts of the costs. The overall costs of increases for labor, facilities, and utilities has increased, and our student needs are, in terms of our English language learner population, is 3 times larger today than it was in 2016. We have about 180 students right now that are receiving English language learner services. That requires students to have additional supports to learn language. In addition, we've seen a exponential increase in the number of students that are suffering from social emotional trauma, as well as behavioral challenges. That also requires additional support and assistance for those students and those families that need them. And in addition, what's happened as a result of this is that the only place that we've been able to really reduce is on the general education side of the budget, because we cannot reduce a special education IEP, an individualized education plan, which is a legal document stating the types of services that we need to provide for students. To give you a sense of where we are here, what you're looking at are fiscal years back to 2017, the number of out-of-district students, OOD, out-of-district, over that same time period. And the number of students you can see that's increased from 457 back in 2017 to 593 students now that are currently receiving services. That's an increase of 29.7% in the number of IEPs in the district. As an overall percentage of the number of students in the district that are receiving services, it's gone up from 18% in 2017 up to just under 23%. And as you can see, we are above the state average in the number of students that are receiving special needs, special services. This trend line shows our special ed expenditures in the same time period. And when you look at, I don't know if I have a pointer here, I do a little bit. When you look at our SPED expenses from pre and post-COVID, you'll see that they were hovering just under 10 million, 2017, 18, 19, 20. We hit 2021, COVID year, 22, post-COVID, and then you get into where we are today. We've seen about a $5 million increase in the costs for our special ed expenses. Where you look at our non-special ed expenses in that same time period that I just highlighted, from post-COVID to now, we've only seen a very minimal increase. And that's because, as I mentioned before, we've been unable to invest in that side, in the general education side, at the cost of needing to be able to make sure that we're providing the services that we're mandated to provide under special education and IDEA. So the other important note here is that the percentage of our overall budget represented, that's an expense of the overall budget. We were spending just under 37% in 2017 of the overall budget on special education. Now that number is over 43%. And that's an increase of 6.43% in that time period. This is a trend line that shows from back to 2015-16, the total general education expenses. Again, just to give you the long view here. And similar to what I just mentioned before, it's increased by 1.9%, I'm sorry, by 1.9 million between FY19 and FY25. That's over a 7-year period. In that same 7-year period, special education expenses have gone up by 4.9 million over the same 7 fiscal years. Some staffing data that I wanted to share with you, because there have been some questions about what's the number of staff that we have, what are the number of administrators that we have, and I wanted to provide some context to these numbers. What you'll see here, these bar graphs are showing the number of teachers per 100 students. So if you look on the left-hand side under teachers, the dark orange in 2019 is showing that we had 6.9 general educators or non-SPED per 100 students, and it shows 1.2 per 100 students on the SPED side. When you come across the bottom chart here, you'll see that we only have 4 additional FTE, full-time equivalent positions, than we did in 2019. That's not a big increase in the number of positions that we've had. And the number of paraprofessionals, likewise, you'll see that it's remained steady. So we're really not spending an extraordinary amount on a lot of additional staff. And I know, again, questions have come up about staffing and if we're overstaffed. I would argue that we do not have enough staff to provide the services that we need to. In terms of district leadership, this includes principals, assistant principals, superintendent, assistant superintendent, and associated staff. That number has been steady since 2019 at 21.8 full-time equivalent positions. Up to 2023, we're at 20.5 FTEs, which was a decrease of 1.3 FTEs. We're also among our peer districts at the bottom of spending for administrative positions. Again, that question has come up around being top-heavy with admin. This chart shows otherwise, that actually our spending is minimal. In order to balance our budget, and what my job is I need to prepare a budget as if we're going to get the 2.5 that we're normally adjusted to. I need to provide that to the town administrator. And in order to do that, I did a look back at the prior fiscal years and what we had already reduced from the budget as far back as FY24, where we had to reduce $542,000 from our budget, and then another $1,030,000 of unfunded expenses that actually never made it into the budget for FY25. These are showing all of the reductions among the different departments and the building levels. Everything here with a check mark is a reduction from FY25. And when we add these all together between FY24 and FY25, we were at just under $3.6 million in reductions. Looking at FY26, this is for the next fiscal year, which begins on July 1st, everything with a check mark here is an additional reduction from the budget, with the exception of right here where it says offsets. Those are tuition increases for the Stoneham Early Learning Center and the addition of 12 tuition-based seats in the preschool, which I would account for as $204,000 in offsets to help with the budget deficit. This is a continuation of the expense reductions for FY26. And if you add up FY26 by itself, that would be just under $4 million, 3.935 for FY26 reductions. When you add that in to the previous fiscal years of FY24 and 25, over 3 fiscal years, we've seen $7.5 million of reductions to the school budget. We are taking a close look at needing to reduce additional $500 to $1 million. And these are some of the possible options. None of these are set in stone. These are things that we're still working through with the school department. Some of the ideas include potentially reducing kindergarten from full to half-day and charging tuition for half-day kindergarten, reducing facilities positions, increasing class sizes potentially for grades 4 and 5 up to 28, 29, 30, increasing athletic fees and family caps, and reducing additional administrative roles for potential additional savings of $1.2 million. I'll take 2 or 3 questions if anyone has anything with regard to the last set of slides.